Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Today we're talking about equity crowdfunding and specifically some marketing advice and tips that I have for you when it comes to your equity crowdfunding campaign. We're getting into it in just a second. Okay, so equity crowdfunding is the whole new thing, right? All the rage, right? Regulation crowdfunding is becoming really big, and there's a lot of different websites and platforms out there. You can use sites like WeFunder, Start Engine, Seed Invest. It also depends, obviously, on where you are. You have different ones in the UK, you have different ones around the world. So I'm mainly talking about the ones in the United States, and right now you have to be a US-based company to do one on like WeFunder, for example. But I want to get into, for example, how do you, as a creator, a founder, an entrepreneur, or a marketer, how do you actually get attention to one of these campaigns? And also, how do you make sure you get the most investment possible and make the best use of your time on one of these platforms? So I'm going to be going through a few different bullet points, if you will, in terms of how to get attention, traffic, convert that attention, and hopefully you find it to be useful. As some background, I got started in the industry in 2012, the crowdfunding industry. I have educated on nonprofit fundraising, on nonprofit crowdfunding, real estate crowdfunding, one of the first people to actually talk about that, wrote a book on that. Kickstarter, Launch Formula, rewards-based crowdfunding, Indiegogo, equity crowdfunding, I wrote the book Equity Crowdfunding Explained. So I've done a lot of different stuff in the crowdfunding arena. And to me, equity crowdfunding is really like the next gold rush, if you will. And a lot of people are getting in the game. I'm getting comments, I'm getting people reaching out to me literally every single day, curious about running an equity crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested, you can always go to my website, crowdcrux.com, and you can hit me up there. But that being said, let's dive into some of these. The first thing is, what are what I call the hard marketing assets that you're going to need to run a campaign? But also, what are these kind of levers that you can pull in order to get people to take action with your campaign and become an investor in your project? The first one is going to be your copywriting. So copywriting is just a very fancy, marketing term, if you will, for the writing on the page. That could be the headlines, the highlights, as you're going down the page, the things that you're saying to expand on any graphics that you have. Copywriting can also take the form of things like email marketing or social media, the writing towards those posts. So the first thing you're going to want to do is begin to get a really crystal clear understanding of how you as the founder want to communicate this new startup or this existing company that you have. The good news is that most people that I work with tend to already have a bit of this information. So you probably already have, for example, a pitch deck, right? The pitch deck, which just goes through like the major problem, your solution, the target market size, who it is that's on the founding team, the business model, maybe some financial projections or some financial results that you already have generated in this industry. That's always a really big one. Those are really easy things that you can put together on your own time to work with a marketer like myself when you're then putting together the marketing strategy of your equity crowdfunding campaign. So the first thing is to what I call build the foundation, right? Build the foundation of the house. To build the foundation of the house, you need the writing, the actual pitch deck, some of those benefits and those high-level things. What is the technology that you're using? Are you using dark storage, AI technology, or enterprise-grade software? Write about the technology and just get this all in an easy-to-share document like a Google Doc, or if it's in your slides, the PowerPoint, right? Something that you can share with other people. The second thing when it comes to your hard marketing assets are to start to collect all the photos and the things that you're going to use for supplementary information. If you already have a company website, you probably have a lot of this stuff. You just might not be aware of it, right? So things like your logo, your color schemes, the things when it comes to like proof, for example, so testimonials or screenshots of the actual product or people using the product. Those are all really great things to include in this marketing file. It could be a Google Drive or like a Dropbox or something like that. Anything like that can work, but you want to start to assemble some of those hard marketing assets. Once you begin to get that going, the next thing you're going to be doing is starting to curate some of that content and to put it into new forms. So let's just say the copywriting, okay? So you're going to go and look at all the stuff that you have already and then begin to say, okay, what's going to make an attractive title for the WeFunder, for the Start Engine, for the Seed Invest, whatever campaign? What are some of the high-level things and bullet points that we want to convey on my equity crowdfunding campaign? You're going to kind of sift through all this material and be like, okay, we want these photos. We want to include maybe better graphics from some of these photos. Maybe we want to put together a testimonial photo or like a collage of different images of partner companies that we're working with. And either you as the individual doing this, or if you're working with someone else, is going to start that process. The other thing would be beginning to think a little bit about the pitch video, right? So the pitch video is another requirement, or at least you want to have one, best practices when it comes to doing an equity crowdfunding campaign. The pitch video serves a few different functions. The first function is credibility, right? Because when you have a video and you're seeing someone, you're even seeing me, you get to know just a little bit of my quirky personality, right? You get to know a little bit of my passion and my energy for crowdfunding. So the pitch video is important, I think, for communicating value and credibility, but it's also obviously like an informational delivery tool, right? So you're going to be delivering information when it comes to maybe the target market size, or how the product is different, or your solution addresses this problem in a very unique way, or the partners that are a part of this project. So there's a lot that you can do in the way of the pitch video to communicate a lot of what I call like good things, or pull a lot of those levers. They're going to get someone curious, wanting to learn more about the product. And it could even go as far as the quality of the video. So for example, having really great graphics or motion graphics or transitions will communicate a lot about your seriousness of the product. Now, that being said, at the end of the day, you as the founder and your credibility is going to matter the most. For example, if Elon Musk threw up an iPhone video for an equity crowdfunding campaign, probably doesn't matter if it's a low quality video, right? But if no one has ever met you before, and you're gonna be introducing this to strangers, and you maybe don't have as much of a track record as you want, people will lean on the video quality as well to make a judgment when they're making a decision. Same thing goes with any other type of decision in their life. So you have the video, you have all of the text there, and you've kind of assembled that into a campaign page. And that's really, to me, where marketing begins, because without that, number one, you don't have the foundation to the house, but you don't even have something that looks like a house, right? Like, you can't sell or market a house unless it looks like a house. It needs windows, it needs doors, it needs to have a driveway, right, ideally, or a backyard, or like you start to figure out what are the things in the house that you're going to be accentuating or trying to sell when you're bringing this to the public. So if you have a really good, stats or something, really good growth in the last year, you're going to be accentuating it a lot when you're doing your marketing. So I call that developing the hard marketing assets, right? The next part of marketing is to figure out your communication strategy and to figure out how you're going to be talking about this to the public, and also at what stages, and also segmentation of the audience. So we're going to break a few of these different down. First one is segmentation of the audience, okay? Segmentation of the audience is a fancy word. All it really means is dividing people up into categories. So that could be, for example, your personal connections, that could be your professional connections, that could be people who invested in your company previously, it could also be previous press contacts that have written about you. You're gonna wanna basically divide up all of these different audiences into sort of micro segments, okay? And we call this your warm list. So your warm list of people who already know who you are, who already have a sense of maybe what it is you're doing, and that's kind of like your warm list of leads. Next, you're gonna begin to think about cold marketing. So cold marketing is basically to people who has never met you before, who've never heard of you before, who have no freaking idea what it is you're doing with this whole equity crowdfunding campaign. And your goal there is to not only warm them up and put them into a marketing funnel, but also to get them eventually to transition into what we call a sale in e-commerce terms, or with equity crowdfunding, it would be an investment, right? So how do we transition people into an investment? And these kind of work in tandem, because the stronger your warm leads, the easier it is to get social proof on your campaign in the way of existing investors, people saying nice things about you, which then makes reaching out to cold people that much easier. You're almost using your existing audience to get cold people curious and interested in your WeFunder campaign. So now that you have like your audience segmented, we'll say, what you're going to want to do next is develop a communication strategy for each of these different segments. So for example, let's just take the cold audience. Like, there's a lot of different communication channels that you can be using. So you could be using social media, right? Social media in the way of Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, etc. You can be using these different, almost as like TV channels, if you will, putting out really cool communications in terms of video, graphics, text, updates, news announcements, advertorials, you name it, right? You can be doing a lot of content production. And the whole goal of that content production is awareness, interest, getting people excited, getting people talking, right? The more you can get someone's awareness and attention and curiosity, the more they're gonna wanna learn more as just a natural byproduct, because they feel like they're kind of missing out on something that's happening already, right? So when you start to put out those communications on social media channels, it's gonna be a heck of a lot easier for you then when you are then starting to push your actual WeFunder campaign. In addition, you have other things beyond just organic marketing. So you also have paid marketing in the way of LinkedIn ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, etc. And when you're thinking about these, again, it's warm and cold. So you could be targeting people who have never had a contact point with your brand in the past, or you could be retargeting people who have already seen your messages, who have already been on your website, already been on your campaign page, and you're just retargeting with messages to try to move them down that marketing funnel to then become a conversion, to become an investor in your WeFunder campaign. You kind of want to think of this as a process, and the same process does apply as well to the warm audience, where just because someone knows you and views you as credible doesn't mean they're going to invest the first time around. It might take them a few times, a few repetitions and exposures before they decide they're going to invest. Maybe that does take like 7 days, right? Or it takes 14 days. The conversion window could obviously vary tremendously, but that's really, you're going to be wanting to think about your overall communication strategy, and more specifically, how the marketing funnel is going to begin to look as you're moving people, transitioning people down into an investor in your campaign. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillment is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillment today. Link in the description. With marketing, you also have different phases, right? Or different sort of phases that you go through, you process through. And this is just in general, like with all different types of marketing, but specifically with equity crowdfunding, you have, for example, test the waters phase. Now you also have, after you filed your Form C, right? And you can also then do the live campaign. And as you're going as well, just like as a company, talking about your announcements and your news as well, to me, is really smart thinking, smart business sense, because then anytime you do a future raise, then you have all these people who are already following you regardless, right? So it goes beyond to me just doing an equity crowdfunding campaign, but you should know that you have different phases that you are going through. And as a marketer, as a person who's running this, you need to be aware of that and the different disclosures that are appropriate given that phase. So for example, the test the waters phase has certain disclosures you have to include in your communications and take screenshots of, particularly if you're doing it off of the actual platform and they don't provide, for example, that. And also when you're live, there are other things, for example, using tombstone style information in your advertisement. That really goes beyond the scope of this video, and I'm not a lawyer. You should always be checking with a lawyer, or you want to think of this more as like an entertainment style video. You want to be checking with the platform itself as well. So there's strategy, right? And strategy to me when you're live is maintaining attention, continuing to drive attention and interest to the campaign, continuing to get people tuned in with your updates and these kind of things that are going on. So you have the basic broad level strategy, which I try to cover at least in a broad level in the beginning of this video. What I want to get into now are what I call the tactics or the processes, right? The nuts and bolts of that strategy. So for example, let's talk about when it comes to the actual campaign page. So we talked about the importance of having warm audiences, right? And using warm audiences to convert cold audiences into an investment person or someone who's investing in the company. How can you tangibly do that, right? With an equity crowdfunding campaign. Easy ways. Social proof, man. Social proof is the easiest way to begin to do this. So social proof could be the form of accolades, for example, previous investments in the company, or other things that the founder has done that are really noteworthy, previous successes and exits that the company has had, the way that the sales are growing so quickly, or some of the metrics there, the target market opportunity, how much are existing brands spending in this niche for other solutions that are similar to yours, right? There's a lot of social proof that you can include on a page in order to give people an idea that this is a legit opportunity. This is something that isn't just like a random fly-by-the-night kind of company. It's really something that's a great opportunity, something that has people behind it that are reputable, who maybe already have business success, or that other investors have already signed off on this and have, like, are sure that this is something they want to be a part of. The more you can include social proof, the more you're going to use the warm audiences that you already have existing access to convert cold audiences into becoming an investor in the company. So it's a tangible tactic or tangible way in which you can do that. And that's going to vary based on the platform, the functionality that they give you, right? So like, for example, with WeFunder having highlights, a highlight section, but you could also just in general include it in your marketing in terms of the graphics, in terms of the video, the copy, and what you choose to focus on. There should be an element of social proof as well as within the actual launch framework, making sure that people are investing as soon as possible, so you get that funding meter going up and to the right? So then people who come to it see it's already happening, it's already people are investing, they're gonna be way more likely to watch your video on any equity crowdfunding platform. The next tactic is to begin to think about the tangible angles for the company. And usually you think of like angles, you usually think of that more as like PR and media outreach, how you might have an angle for a story, right? But to me, like, business owners nowadays basically have to be their own PR people as well. You have to be putting out content that has an angle of some kind. You'll notice this if you begin to discover or you begin to look into and research the marketing for other equity crowdfunding campaigns. They all have an angle, right? They literally all have some form of angle. And that angle could be a technology focus. That angle could be what other investors who are investing, what their previous exits were or previous things that they participated in, right? Another angle could be like the market size or the market opportunity that not a lot of people are aware of. Another angle could be the existing success or the existing scalability or the existing way that the results are happening within the company and why you should be aware of that. So there's some things which you can disclose. We're going to go into the tombstone style information and look and review that quite carefully. But that being said, you're going to need to develop a few different angles. And some of those angles might be a better fit for some platforms, for example, like LinkedIn, whereas one angle might be a better fit for Facebook. So this is just kind of like a research process. If you can, begin to get a Google document going and just begin to look into that and see like, okay, these are the different angles that we have. How can we begin to hammer on those angles? Are you going to need to create more creatives? For example, video creative that's going to go out on Facebook. Or if we're talking about these angles in emails, are we going to need to stress that more? What bullet points really comprise this information? So what you're going to want to do is, after you've developed those angles, then begin to curate and match them to the different platforms and the different channels that you have to do your communications. And what you're going to have then is a way to manifest all of these different angles into tangible facts or figures or taglines or micro videos or whatever that are going to be distributed on all of these different platforms, if that makes sense. The next tactic that I'm going to recommend has to do with the marketing funnel. So think of this always as a gradient. Again, it's a gradient. If you have like a table in front of you, on one side of the table, you have one type of person. On another side of the table, you have another type of person. On the one side, you have someone who's going to make a quick decision, right? Going to see it one time and decide to invest, maybe based on previous relationship, maybe based on their personality, that's just how they are, or maybe because they like what you're doing, right? Or they believe in the product and the solution. They're going to make an immediate decision. Other people are not. Other people are going to take time, right? And some people are even going to need a personal touch. And particularly if someone is putting in a significant amount of money into the company, they might need a bit more of a personal touch than what might be traditional when you think of like online digital marketing. So online digital marketing is always like, oh, we don't want to, sully ourselves with talking directly to the customer, right? We don't want to have to talk directly to the potential investor. We want to make it all automated and make it all, just broadcast, messages to everyone, right? That can work, and that is great in terms of a communication mechanism to get a lot of people's attention and awareness. However, you cannot shy away from just tried and true methods that work to transition a customer into an investor or into a sale when it comes to online marketing, digital marketing, etc. So you should look at this almost as like an instrument or a tool in your toolbox. And specifically what I'm referring to is allowing people to schedule a Calendly call with you or a call with the founder, particularly if they're a VIP, right? There's someone who you really, if they become an investor, is really going to benefit you in a large way. And also that person might just need a little bit more confidence building before they decide to make that decision. It could just even be using WeFunder and using Start Engine or using one of these other platforms, and using that interface, right? So if they are that type, you want to have a mechanism where they can do that using Calendly or some of these other softwares. Now, it is important, obviously, to be aware of what you're communicating and making sure you're directing them mainly to WeFunder. However, I think it's completely harmless just to have a simple chat with someone so they can get a sense of where your vision is, where your head is at, what kind of person you are, get to know your personality, but do some bonding, and then they can become a really big investor in your equity crowdfunding campaign. So don't shy away from doing what's called work that doesn't always scale, or doing small things that seem like it's a lot of work, but if it can have a big upside or big ROI, it makes a lot of sense to me. Digital marketing is incredible. Like, I'm obviously a digital marketer. I love digital marketing, but there are times when you also need a personal touch. So don't be afraid to pick up the call to do what might be bread and butter sales and marketing techniques to get people to then take action and to actually invest in the campaign that you are running. A lot of the times, people do not like to take chances in life. They don't like to bet on things that are not a sure thing, right? Now, if it's something exciting like Bitcoin or Tesla or these different companies that are skyrocketing or surging at different points in time, they obviously go up and down. People might just want to join in on the fun, right? And that's kind of cool. Like, they just want to see where it goes or what happens. But a lot of the times, people want a degree of certainty. So when it comes to your marketing for your equity crowdfunding campaign, it is your job to bring the certainty to the top, to allow it to percolate and to float to the top. And that's the first thing that people see when they look down into the glass or when they're looking at whatever, right? They're looking at the top of the lake. Like, you want this to percolate to the top, if you will, and to see it very easily. So what are things that you could do in order to communicate a certain sense of certainty? First thing could be done would be talking about track record, right? So track record, typically, if someone's already been successful in the past, they have a track record of doing something, it's pretty likely they can at least continue it into the future, right? If I've been pretty decent at playing chess in the past, chances are I'm gonna win some chess games in the future, right? If I love playing online. Same thing goes with YouTube videos, right? If I've been making YouTube videos in the past, I can do YouTube videos, probably can do it in the future, right? It's just like your track record. So think about your track record as a founder and of the people that are working internally in this company. What is their track record? How can that continue into the future? Now, there's obviously no absolutes, but it does give people a certain degree of certainty. If, for example, someone has worked at Google before and they're a super brilliant engineer and they're the one who's heading up your engineering team, it shows probably the track record is going to continue. They can do some great work there. Another way to show certainty is to talk about previous results. Now, previous results do not indicate future potential results, right? You have to say that tagline, but it does give people at least an idea of the caliber of your work and your craft. So for example, if you've had a previous exit, if you had different business successes, if you've had some kind of other noteworthy success like an accolade, or you've written a book, or you have some kind of an award of some kind, right? These are all easy ways that you can communicate certainty to someone. And the more certain they feel about you and sort of that you're in good standing, the more likely they are to also believe that what you're doing, for example, running this company, is going to be taken seriously. And then it's something that is going to be your sole focus. And if you've had all these great things happen in the past, probably also going to be in the future. You do not want to mislead people. You do not want to lie or anything like that. But it's completely harmless just to tell your story. Tell your story, man. Why are you so passionate about this? Why is this something that you've been working on? Why is this a problem that's been keeping you up at night? And you developed this rock solid solution to be able to combat that. And how is it that your experience in life has uniquely allowed you to develop a solution that's better than anything else out there on the market, or that's attacking a market size that's just growing rapidly and almost like a no-brainer, right? And this thing is just going to continue to grow based on previous trends. Last two bullet points I kind of want to hammer on in today's video really go kind of more into psychology, right? So psychology is something that's like, to me, a little bit like esoteric, right? and you think about like psychology and like textbook stuff, and it's like, how is that really grounded in reality, right? Well, the easiest way is just to observe yourself on a daily basis. And for me, I noticed that in my daily schedule, typically the things that are most urgent will gravitate to the top of my list, right? Like I knew how to do a YouTube video today, and that just gravitated to the top of my list, and I didn't pay attention to anything else. I'm like, I gotta do a video today. I gotta make a video today. So it gravitates to the top of my list. When things are urgent, they gravitate to the top of your list. So make sure that if, for example, there is built-in urgency with your campaign, for example, certain amount of period for the test the waters, certain amount of period that you're live with the fundraising campaign, certain amount of time left while early bird terms are available with your equity crowdfunding offering, why not communicate that? What's the harm, right? You don't want to be like stroking false urgency or something like that. But if it's just communicating the correct information, right, and that information happens to cause a little bit of urgency, I think that's fine. You know, you can obviously check with a lawyer if you want to and go more in depth into actually the tactics. But for me, urgency is one of the number one things that gets people to take action. So why not use it to your advantage as long as it's in good general guidelines? The other thing, aside from urgency and sort of that feeling like, okay, I got to take action now, or this is something that's happening, right? So the other thing, aside from urgency, is repetition, right? Repetition to me is like one of just like the bread and butter, low-hanging fruit pieces of marketing that a lot of people just don't use. And I think it's because they don't want to overwhelm or they don't want to annoy people, right? You're not annoying people unless it's like, I guess, really annoying marketing, right? But you're not really annoying people. At the end of the day, people are going to tune out if they're not interested. If they are interested, they're going to tune in, right? It's very simple. So using repetition is a great, and to me, one of the easiest ways to get on someone's radar and to move from that box of being like, I don't really care about this thing, to be like, this is kind of interesting. It's almost like you're rotating, okay? So I play with this analogy. It's almost like you're rotating and you're solving a combination lock and you're rotating through these different things. And at one point, you're gonna hit something that's gonna click, right? And when it clicks, the lock's gonna open, right? Or if like you're picking a lock and you're turning it and like you figure out, okay, this is the first combination. Right? Okay, I got the first combination. And what that's gonna do in terms of marketing is like, you're gonna be rotating through a few different angles and a few different ways of communicating it. And maybe the first time it doesn't hit, but maybe the third time they see a communication from you, it hits and they're like, that's cool. And it's gonna create this emotion of curiosity and they're gonna wanna learn more. So the thing is with repetition, it's not about repeating the same thing. It's about repeating it in different ways and different forms. And by doing that, you can stay on the top of someone's mind, top of mind, really important with marketing, but also it allows you to discover the hook or the angle or the thing that's going to unlock that combination where they then start to be curious, interested, and wanting to learn more. And maybe it wasn't the founder that they cared about. It wasn't the fact that you're even growing fast with your sales. It wasn't even the fact that you're working with different partners. Maybe it was the technology, something you didn't even know that you were using with a technology framework or the tech stack that you're using with your company. And you talk about that and how your startup is using this kind of new technology and like, that's actually really cool. I want to be in that company. They're using the cutting edge technology or cutting edge techniques, right? And that's what gets them interested. So people are different. They're going to invest for different reasons. You want to be like that person who's trying to figure out the combination to the lock from many different types and just be cycling through different types of angles until you get the one that's going to resonate with that individual. And with that repetition framework, you're also staying on top of mind. You're doing it in a way that's not overwhelming or annoying, just saying the same stuff over and over again. Instead, you're going through and you're cycling through, you get that then hook or that interest, then they start to learn more, and you keep doing that, you keep doing that, you keep doing that. And over time, you convert more and more and more of the audience into your offer and becoming interested in what it is that you're doing. So I hope that you found this video to be helpful. I got a great book out there on equity crowdfunding. You can check it out in the link down below. Got it on Audible. I also got a free course out there on equity crowdfunding. I will include a link in the description. And finally, if you're interested in learning more, I'll include maybe a couple of videos that I've done on this topic, but I hope that you found it to be useful. Didn't mean this to be super comprehensive. I just wanted to kind of get your feet wet so that you can learn a little bit about marketing as you're kind of going on the fly here. Give me a thumbs up if you did like it. Come subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this. If you want to put up more content on equity crowdfunding, would love to hear from you. Go and check out my website, crowdcrux.com. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and I will see you next time.